Reds and yellows danced as a cool wind wove through the autumn trees. It seemed too cinematic to be real. Fall. The icy winds. The changing colors. The scent of fresh baked goods and seasonal flavors. It was something that many people celebrated and many people took for granted. However, to me, it was a dream come true. Born and raised in the heat of the southwestern desert, fall didn't really exist. Sure, there were some temperature changes, but there was no icy chill. There were no trees that changed colors on such a grand scale. Forests of red and gold were from movies or posters that hung on a wall. Yet as I stepped out of the warm comfort of the rental car, I took a moment to absorb the picturesque views around. It wasn't just Hollywood or a dream. It was a real thing. "Beautiful, ain't it?" a voice spoke up behind me. "It is," I answered as I turned to see a woman who looked like she was the manager of the small hotel that I came to. She was a homely woman. A wide smile enhanced her slightly round cheeks. Yet the smile didn't really reach her eyes. Perhaps it was a smile learned from years in the hospitality business. It was anyone's guess. "Well, welcome to Brumeton. Are you checking in?" "I am. Reservations under Kane Devilson." "It's lovely to meet you, Mr. Davidson. I'm Dorothy, the manager here. Are you visiting for business or pleasure?" I ignored the mistake to my name. Most people assumed they heard it wrong or were uncomfortable with repeating it. Hell, I had thought about getting it legally changed, so I couldn't get angry if others made mistakes. The woman led me into the motel lobby to start checking in. "Business." She gave a soft laugh. "Not much business around here, at least not this time of year. The summer, though," she trailed off as she pointed to a key already set on the counter. "Well, the summer, that's when we get all the tourists wanting to get on the lake or camp down the road. Lots of people then." I could just imagine every summer camp movie I'd ever seen play out on the banks. Camping, people walking to the ice cream shack, long bike rides, volleyball games, swimming, boats, kayaks, bonfires. Hell, even a few horror movies and porn clips came to mind. "It sounds lovely. Probably best not to mention those last ones to the manager." Dorothy grinned. "Chaos is more like it." "I can imagine." With only a few more parting words, I made my way down to the covered walkway from the lobby to my room. It wasn't anything fancy, a classic roadside motel at a seasonal tourist location. However, it had all that I needed. I dumped my bag on one of the two beds and pulled the covers off of the other. Call it a habit of growing up in the desert, if you will, but I couldn't stand to sleep with heavy blankets. I'd rather turn the room temp up and sleep in as little as possible. A glint of light hit the mirror set over the dresser. It was a brief flash, but it was enough to pull my attention. As I looked up, I saw myself. I looked lost. Hell, I felt lost. I felt angry, confused, uncertain I was doing the right thing. What was the point of digging up history? Quickly, I tried to push it all down. Opening my bag, I took a swig of the whiskey I bought at the airport. Part of me didn't want to rely on liquid courage. The other part of me needed the burn to help me focus. I came for answers, and that's what I was going to find. Following my GPS, I managed to find my way to a small church that was set back in the woods surrounding the lake. The small, older building looked quaint, possibly 100 years old or more. I wondered what it would be like to attend services there every Sunday. It must be a very close community. Would everyone know everyone's secrets? I hoped so. Taking a deep breath, I got out and walked around the side of the church. There was a path that led deeper into the woods where a small home hid amongst the trees. Those were the directions I was given. However, as I made my way along the path, I wove between the church and the small cemetery next to it. And there, a petite older woman sat watching the wind blow the grass and flowers over the graves. Hearing the crunching of my boots on the gravel and fallen leaves, the woman looked up, surprised to see me there. "Who are you?" She looked puzzled. "Cain Devilson, ma'am." Her wrinkled face scrunched up. "An unusual name." "I'm not from Brumeton, just visiting." The woman huffed. "Well, no shit, Sherlock. I'm old, not senile." That made me chuckle. At least she had a sense of humor. Then she looked at me again and studied my face. "You look familiar, though. You have roots here, I can tell." Moving to sit on the other end of the bench with her, I leaned back and prayed she could be the beginning of getting answers. "My mother was from here. She left before I was born." Her eyes grew wide. "You're Sarah's boy?" I nodded my head. "Yeah." "Then why are you here?" "I'm looking for answers. I never knew anything about this place, where she was from, her family, my father, nothing." "Why not ask her?" That hurt. A stab straight through the heart. My mother passed away recently. I only learned anything about any of this from the stuff in her safe. The woman nodded. "I can't imagine she wanted to talk about her past. No one does." "Could you tell me?" Sad brown eyes looked up at me. "You really don't want to know. It's best to leave the past in the past. Leave Brumeton and never come back." I had come all this way. I needed answers. "Please, I need to know. I need to know why I've inherited a house behind the church. Do I have any family here? Or what happened to her that caused her to hate me so much? Was it all my fault?" Years of emotional and physical abuse, of drunken accusations blaming a child for destroying her life, of her attempts to strangle me or then drown me before someone stopped her. Memories twisted and rolled into endless fragments of pain, fear, and isolation. I jumped when I felt the pressure of the woman's hand on my knee. "None of it was your fault. You had no choice or role in anything other than to exist. Trust me when I say that you should leave. Forget about your house, your mother's past, or anyone here. Get out of here and live your life." "I can't do that. I need to know." "Look at me, Cain. You don't. Learning will not change the past, but it can hurt you now." With that, she stood up and walked down the path toward the front of the church and disappeared around the corner. I sat there, taking in her words. The little old lady who spoke with so much conviction yet gave no answers, and I didn't even ask her name. I couldn't say how long I sat in the cold breeze as I debated whether to leave or continue my search for answers. She seemed so sure it could cause me pain to learn the truth, but without knowing, I couldn't gauge it myself. Determination and anger from not being in the loop pushed me to get up and go search the fucking house behind the church. I knew nothing about this place, only that some guy passed away and his house was given to my mother. I didn't know if he was her father, brother, or what, but when she died, it then passed down to me. Left abandoned for decades. I had no hope of it being anything more than a shack to be demolished. But could it hold some answers I was looking for? Stepping through the trees with nothing but the sound of the wind blowing, small animals, and my own steps, I finally saw the small home that had been only a red dot on my GPS. It wasn't as bad as I had imagined. Still abandoned and in need of some work, but it didn't look all that bad at first glance. Yet everything stopped when I heard the distinct sound of a shotgun being cocked, ready to fire. "I have no patience for strangers around here, so get the hell off my property." His property? I ran everything past a lawyer's office first. I held the deed to the land and the house on it. Quickly, I threw my hands up and looked at the man who stood in the doorway to the home. He wore black slacks held up with gray suspenders, a white undershirt with no overshirt on, and a mess of black hair. his angry hazel eyes red from too much alcohol. But what drew the most attention was the red splatters of blood on his white shirt. What in the hell had I walked into? I mean you no harm, sir. I was sent here to learn about the house and whoever lives here. Sent by who? Sarah. I was cut off by his angry yells. That bitch! Where in the fuck has that whore been hiding? She died, sir. The man grunted. Good riddance. I hope she rots in hell. Only a shame I couldn't kill her myself. For all of the anger, pain, and suffering my mother had caused me, it was still a shock to hear someone speak of her that way. Okay, I'm just gonna leave you be then. I slowly started to back away. However, the sound of me stepping on a dry twig drew his attention to me once more. The fury practically radiated off of him across the yard. And who are you to her? Another lover? Another fuck toy she broke her marriage vows with? No, sir. I'm her son. That drew the man out to the steps. Don't you lie to me, boy. He held the gun up and aimed straight for me. I'm not, I swear. You swear? You used the Lord's name in vain for that unfaithful bitch? Sweat beaded on my brow. I didn't understand the history enough to know the right answers to give and to make it out of there unharmed. However, before I could do anything more, shots rang out, echoing through the trees. I dropped lower and covered my head on instinct, but then it took a few moments for me to realize I didn't feel anything. I glanced up to gauge if I had a chance to run and started to turn, but was stopped by the little old woman I had met in the cemetery. She motioned for me to get behind her. Seriously? He's insane. You need to get out of here before he hurts you. The woman frowned as she stared at the man at the house. Abel Davidson, you put that down right now. She spoke with authority. Step aside, Mama. Or what? You'll kill me? She gave a half laugh. You did that already. You can't do it again. What the fuck? I fell backward into fallen leaves. In the blink of an eye, the man stood before his supposed mother and faced her in rage. You protected her. You protected my whore wife and that bastard of a child. You chose them over me. The woman stayed firm. Because you were wrong. As the man's rage boiled over, the entire house exploded into splinters and flame. The ground shook beneath me as I covered my face from the flying debris. But as I struggled to understand, to focus enough to escape, it all crashed down. The squawk of a police car carried over from the parking lot in front of the church. I could just see it through the trees, next to my rental car. Immediately, I scrambled my way up and ran toward the responders. But what surprised me the most when I finally reached them was the calm behavior as they watched me run towards them. Sir, is everything all right? Their eyes took in every bit of my panic and fear. The house exploded! One of the officers nodded. Yeah, not much left of that place. But what are you doing here? This place has been blocked off and abandoned for years. What? The place just blew up and you don't care? The other officer shook his head. What are you talking about? That house back there blew up 30 years ago or more. Nothing left to blow up. I looked around and everything looked different. The quaint little church had windows broken. The paint had peeled and flaked off until little remained. Spray paint marked the sides with a graffiti saying, "The Devil's Church." Even the cemetery was overgrown with weeds and broken stones. The bench I had sat on was covered in moss and leaves. What in the fuck? Come on, where are you staying? An officer tried to get my attention. I didn't even look at him. My eyes looked over everything I had walked through and remembered everything I experienced. What was real? Suddenly, my eyes focused on the names of the headstones. One caught my eye. Dorothy Davidson, loving mother, sister, and daughter. A beacon of warmth to a lost traveler. Sir, where are you staying? Brumeton Motel. There was a half laugh. That place has been closed since all of this mess went down. The owner was killed like the rest of them. No one ever wanted to come back. The owner? I finally turned and looked at the police officers. Dorothy Davidson? One looked confused and the other officer nodded. Yeah, I remember her. She was a good woman. She did right by her guests and others visiting the town in the summer. It's a shame her brother went mad and destroyed everything here. I'll be honest, I was kind of hoping you were with some development company, ready to tear it all down and start over. I finally shook my head and paid more attention to the conversation. What exactly happened here? From what I heard, Abel Davidson had always expected to take over the ministry of the church from his father. Had a whole life planned. A good kid. His family was well loved. He even married his high school sweetheart, Sarah. But when he went off to seminary, someone broke into the young couple's home behind the church. Sarah fought hard. Still, she ended up in the hospital from being beaten so badly. Something happened to Abel. I don't know if he had other issues to start with, but he could never get over the fact that his wife was assaulted. Then, when it was discovered that she was pregnant from the attack, he lost it. He tried to burn her at the stake as a witch and harlot before the townsfolk stopped him. His family got her down and far away from him, but he spiraled and killed everyone who stopped him. Holy shit. I sat in the front of my rental car. That was my mother's past. Fuck me. I will say though, wherever his wife is, she inherits most of the town. I didn't even have time to process the words as I looked up to see Abel Davidson storming his way out of the woods. Do you see him? I pointed at the man I had seen before. The officers shook their heads. See what? So you're the devil's son! You're the fucking child that the bitch created with another man! Abel roared as he made his way towards me. I backed up and scrambled into my rental car, taking off down the road. Why? Why could I see him? Why could I see any of them? As I pulled into the motel, I could see all of the wear and tear of decay that I hadn't seen before. How had they fucked with my head so much? Taking the key out of my pocket, I went to the room where I left my stuff. Even there, everything was filthy with dust and spider webs. The only clean surface was the bed where I had removed the dusty covers. It made me sick to realize that I hadn't known, hadn't seen. I could have slept there that night, or worse. Are you checking out already? Dorothy's voice carried down the corridor from the lobby. Quickly, I threw my bag into the car and took off to get the fuck out of the town. I didn't care about any property. I got the answers I needed. And I never wanted to step foot near Brumeton again. However, I didn't make it far as Abel Davidson stood in the middle of the road, shotgun in hand. He fired and I panicked. I swerved to the side and sent my car through the barricades to fall 20 feet into the lake below. My head spun from the impact. I couldn't tell where I was until I felt the cold, murky water filling the car. I tried to unbuckle my seatbelt, but it was stuck. Panic and anger boiled to the surface as I beat the window. How had my life come to this? You were the spawn of Satan, boy. Abel Davidson spoke from the back seat. You never should have lived.